Welcome to the pricing module. In this module, we define pricing, how it fits into the overall marketing mix, as well as introduce strategies and objectives to assist you. Pricing is simply the value delivered by a product or service. And when we start to think about the value, we can use the value equation. Now, the value derived by a customer from the product or service purchased is simply quality divided by the price paid for the product. Have you ever bought a product or service and been wowed? You were wowed by the experience, your value was high, you were glad you made that purchase. It made your life better. I bet you've also had those experiences where you bought a product or service at a price that maybe was a little bit more than you were willing to pay, but ultimately the quality did not meet the price paid for that product. So in that instance, we had a gap. So the value equation is a great way to think about pricing through a market lens or a consumer-focused lens, where value derived from the product or service based upon consumer preference and perspective is simply the quality of the product or service received divided by the price the customer paid for that product or service. Now, another example included in our textbook is the profit equation, where we start to look at the profit. Remember, pricing is just as much positioning as it is profit. Now, the profit margin is something that an organization must have to remain sustainable. You must have profit or dollars in the bank to continue to produce the product or service sold. Profit is simply total revenue minus total cost, meaning we have to bring in more revenue than what we are spending on the product or service to produce and sell. This can include both indirect and direct costs, which we will get into in this module. Now, as a marketing team, we have to determine the price a product should be sold. Ultimately, we have to make sure that the value equation is high for the consumer, that we are creating consumer value, but also that we are generating adequate profit to sustain the company. The 5 C's of pricing assist us in determining the price the product should be sold. These include cost, customers, channels of distribution, competition, and compatibility as we research the price for the product to be sold. Now, when we look at cost, this includes both the fixed and variable expenses associated with the product. Expense is independent of the number of units sold. So regardless of the number of units produced and sold, salary within the organization may be a fixed expense. Overhead like rent or electricity may also be fixed. Doesn't matter how many units we sell, we ultimately have to pay these expense items. Now, variable expenses are directly associated with the number of units sold. This could include composite requirements to build that product for sale in the marketplace that are directly dependent on the number of units produced. Customers, this one's unique in that we are looking at the price in which customers are willing to pay. In marketing, we call this what the market will bear. Regardless of the profit margin desired, if the price we are going to charge is higher than what the market will bear, consumers will be less interested in product purchase. Channels are extremely important to the 5 C's of pricing because the channels selected will have a direct relation on the costs associated with the product. If you are in a high involvement decision-making industry in which a sales team is required or a personal selling representative, you may have a sales team which will increase the cost associated with staffing in the channel selected. Also, if you're in a product or a manufactured product category where you have a wholesaler or an intermediary sales team, that will have a direct relation on the price charged to the consumer. Now, competition is key because it's your product or brand with relation to the competitive landscape. So what is the overall consumer perception and placement within the map of your product in relation to other competitors? And lastly, compatibility. This is where we focus on positioning. Are you a luxury item? Are you a value-based item? Or do you fall somewhere in between? So this is the positioning component of the 5 C's of pricing. Now that we've taken a look at the 5 C's of pricing, let's look at potential objectives as you develop your pricing. Now, as you're getting prepared to develop your pricing, you must first set objectives. Then you move into the estimation of demand, costs, an analysis of the external environment. Remember your SWOT analysis. And then you set your pricing strategies or tactics. But the number one start is determining pricing objectives. Now that we've taken a look at the role of pricing in the marketing mix, learned a little bit about the 5 C's of pricing, walked through the 5 steps of determining a pricing strategy and an objective, we can learn more about pricing strategies as they relate to the product development lifecycle. So our bell curve is back as we walk through the stages. Let me include them again here. Of course, we have our introductory stage. The product is introduced to the market. We're trying to increase consumer awareness as we move throughout the life cycle. Then we move into a stage of growth with our early adopters and our innovators really grasping onto our product or service. Brand awareness is increasing and manufacturing and production are following suit. As we round up the bell curve, we have the maturity stage where we have our early adopters and our late adopters falling into this category. Remember, 68% roughly of our overall consumer mix. And then of course we move into our period of decline where we have our laggards. They just need a product to meet their unique needs, wants, and desires at that time. Now, pricing as it relates to the stage of the life cycle curve will vary. So the price set at introduction will not run the entire scope of the product development life cycle curve. So in the example of the latest iPhone release, at introduction, pricing is extremely high. And that is because we are limited in the amount of manufactured products available to the marketplace, but also we're trying to grab that early adopter innovator category mix. We're trying to get those early brand enthusiasts, those that are concerned with status, as well as the overall features and benefits of that product to the table. Now, as we start to move throughout the life cycle curve, products become more readily available. The early majority comes to the table. The price starts to decrease a little bit. Now, as an organization, we know we have another release in production. We're working on our latest model, moving it through the testing phase of new product development and preparation to test it in the marketplace. So we're reducing the price to make it more readily available to the market. At this price point, the early majority really takes hold, and we move into, remember, our cash cow phase. We really don't have to do much to promote this product or service. Now, as we are moving out of the testing phase of the latest model, we probably continue to decrease the price of that product. And the reason being we're spending less on the product for marketing, we're also preparing a new edition or new product launch. So therefore our interests are moving elsewhere. We also might be preparing to divest that current model or edition, so it is on its way out. So just as we learn more about pricing to set the stage, tie it to the product development life cycle, pricing will not remain the same as the product moves throughout the life cycle curve, unless you determine to reposition or repackage at this point, and we introduce the same product as a newly repackaged or repositioned product item, which starts the life cycle curve over again. This concludes our quick introduction to pricing. Please continue to move through the mini module content in preparation to complete your graded assessments for this module.